Okay, it's time for another on-the-spot question. Joelle and Litz. As someone who's owned and operated an auto body shop, do you find click and clack on NPR's Car Talk amusing or annoying?
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. That's not
understand.
my question. But you should listen. They're funny. All right. You've complained about being excluded from a couple of these candidate forums, and we're happy to have all announced candidates here. However, the campaign finance reports that were submitted on Friday show that your campaign has raised less than $5,000. Now, of course, ideas and experience matter a lot, but voters may ask, is your candidacy viable? And can you make a go of this?
Absolutely. This is a grassroots campaign, and we do a lot of things ourselves. We do it with volunteers. As I said, we create our own website, we do our own social media presence, but I have been to every one of our 67 counties. My sister travels with me, and we have just a wonderful time. We're doing sightseeing and visiting all the sites and interacting with people on the ground. You know, we're not in... we're in touch, is what I'm trying to say. And it's up to the people to decide this election. It's not up to a select few. So that is my contention, that we should all be included if we're qualified, which means we're 18 years old, we're registered to vote, we have life experiences that relate to other people. I have been a county commissioner for 15 years. I have owned and operated an auto body shop and a small commercial rental place, and I've been involved in our environment. Do you think George Washington and Abraham Lincoln had to have, you know, the biggest bucks to become president of the United States? If you truly believe in democracy, if you truly believe as an American that everybody is equal, then yes, I belong on this stage, and I should be your next governor, and I will defeat Corbett. Give me that chance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time for another on the spot. We'll do back-to-back on the spots, and this is for John Hanger. Mr. Hanger, you've received attention for your call to, and I quote, legalize marijuana and regulate it and tax it as soon as possible. Tell us what that would look like, how that would work. Would the state sell marijuana like it sells liquor and wine, which we've talked about earlier, or would private enterprise be allowed to do it? How would it work?
I'm going to answer that question directly in a moment, but I do want to take a moment to explain why. And part of the reason is that family that I sat with, and the mom is Mrs. Friedman, and she is now an evangelist for medical marijuana. Her son was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and the only thing that gave him some relief was smoking marijuana. A lot of vets find the same experience, that post-traumatic stress disorder can be treated with marijuana. In her case, she had to go with her son to drug dealers. This is a woman who does not have a traffic ticket, and she is going out in the night buying marijuana from drug dealers. So I do desperately want to live in the real world, and I want to move marijuana purchases from the drug gangs, bring it into the legal economy, create, frankly, a whole new industry. That's innovation. That will create thousands of good-paying jobs. And I'm open to whether it is sold at the state stores or in businesses licensed by the government, as it's been done in Colorado right now. We're wasting $350 million a year chasing down and ruining people's lives, pushing people towards suicide, and denying children who have Dravet syndrome medical cannabis. This policy is a disaster, and it's racially unfair. We're arresting African Americans at 5 times the rate of whites, even though usage is the same. It's a disgrace where we are, and the Democratic Party better get on board with this issue, or you're going to lose your base.
Let me follow up, though. I will hold you to, how would it work? How would it work to sell marijuana?
Well, as I said, I'm open to having it done either through the state stores, and that's one of the advantages, frankly, of having a state store system that will provide much more control of marijuana in the future, were we to do that, than today. There is no control right now. These drug dealers will sell it to children. This is the worst of all possible worlds right now. This prohibition policy has failed horrifically, and it must be changed. In Colorado, they license businesses. People working in those businesses behind the store selling the product are earning $20 an hour. There are good paying jobs that we can take out of the hands of the drug gangs and bring into licensed businesses or the state stores. One or the other would work.
Thank you.
Okay, time for another policy question. As the state confronts a deficit that the current administration has estimated at least $1 billion for the coming fiscal year, there are proposals in the legislature to raise revenue through expanded gambling, lottery games like Keno, or legalized online gambling. Which, if any, of these proposals do you favor or would you rule out, and why? And by the luck of the draw, John Hanger, you keep talking.
Well, let's start by just reminding ourselves that this $1 billion deficit is a direct fruit of the disastrous policies of this governor. Most states right now have a surplus. They're having a budget process this year where they're looking at how they deal with a surplus. But here in Pennsylvania, we have $1 billion deficit because this governor has driven job creation into the ditch. And by doing so, he's driven our revenue collection into the ditch. That's one of the reasons why I would much prefer to be talking about things like the Hanger Jobs Plan, which would create 382,000 jobs, and my college affordability plan, all of which would spur job creation.
Yeah, but the question was about
I'm getting there.
gambling.
I'm getting there. You can do the follow-up after I have my 90 seconds. I would indeed prefer to be dealing with those issues because it's more productive than, frankly, expanding gambling. But again, I do live in the real world, and I would support the expansion in the manner that is being discussed, as long as it's licensed, as long as it's properly overseen. I personally don't like gambling. I think it's regressive. I respect those who think this is a terrible way to finance government. They have a very good point. But Tom Corbett has pushed us into these kind of horrible choices by his failed governance and by pursuing these toxic conservative policies that destroy jobs.
Thank you. Joellen Litz.
Surely. I'm not in favor of expanding gambling, and I'll tell you why. We, first of all, do support seniors with the lottery. And, you know, our area agency on aging could not do all that they do for seniors with tax relief on their real estate, with meal programs and things like that without that income. But on the other hand, we also have volunteer fire companies in many of the rural communities throughout this state. And they have just very limited ways of raising funds. They're out there fighting our fires in bitter cold, in the heat, etc. And then they're expected to go back and have spaghetti dinners and pot pie suppers and things of that nature to raise money to buy a fire truck that costs, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not fair. So by expanding gambling, you're going to be cutting into their market because some of them do have some games of chance which are very important to their revenue stream. And I think that if we want to pick up the tab for all of those volunteer firefighters and all of that equipment that they're raising money for, I think it's cutting off our nose to spite our face, and it's not worth it. I support our volunteer fire companies.
But no Keno, no online gambling.
Correct.
For you. Okay, Katie McGinty.
Well, I agree with what John said in terms of, is this your favored way to raise revenues? Not necessarily, but picking up on the theme, too, of living in the real world. My own mom and dad, who passed away last year at 94 and 91, were among those seniors who would board the buses to go to Atlantic City with their $10 in quarters. If gaming is going to happen and gambling is going to happen, I'd prefer to keep those revenues here in Pennsylvania. But the key point is that our economy has been driven into the ditch by this governor. We've recited some of the statistics. You know, when Ed Rendell was governor, we were 7th in the country in job creation. We have fallen as low as 49th, maybe we're at 46th today. It's disgraceful. But lest people think that this is just Tom Corbett squeezing government jobs and reducing bureaucracy and inefficiency, that's not the case at all. We are now dead last in the region in private sector job creation. Many states are growing 10 times as rapidly as Pennsylvania. A conservative organization just a week or so ago came out with an assessment of how are governors doing in being responsible stewards of their state's finances. Tom Corbett won for us a whopping 42 out of 50 in terms of most mismanaged. It is completely time for a change. In terms of revenues, why don't we start by giving 600,000 Pennsylvanians the dignity of health care, expand Medicaid. These are our tax dollars that are going to go to another state. That initiative alone will save us $500 million in addition to doing right by Pennsylvania's
Thank
families.
you. But Keno and online gambling, do we have a hard answer on either one of them?
No, as
You're
I
open to
said,
it.
look,
Okay.
I think I would just be very pragmatic about these potential sources of revenue.
Okay.
You know, some experts say that we're past the point of diminishing returns, and any further gaming just eats into revenues we already have.
Okay.
Others say the contrary. I would listen to the experts and follow that.
Thank you. Just if there's a
advice.
clear position, I want to make sure we get it out. Allison Schwartz.
Yeah, some consistency here a bit, I think. Also would not choose to expand gambling as my first choice. It's a conversation. Unlike Tom Corbett, I do understand you need the legislature to agree. He wanted to expand, gambling by allowing a private company from overseas to do that without actually getting approval from the legislature, and he was reined in on that. So this is a conversation with the legislature, but it would not be my first choice. And so again, it's something I would. If it's a part of a package, I guess I might look at it. But we have other opportunities, and I will just mention one that I think referred to is that I would put an extraction tax of 5% on the energy companies. And this is important to us. It is real revenue. They expected to pay it. They pay 7% in Texas and 7.5% in Oklahoma and 5% in West Virginia. So a moderate 5% just to match our neighbor would really give us a real revenue to deal with. We close the Delaware loophole, that's another $500 million. There are other sources. And third, I would say we've got to grow this economy. You've heard this. Being 48th in job growth is not helping our state. We want to grow those jobs. There are ways that we have to make the real investments that grow jobs that you would want to work in, that you would want your children to work in, that really grow the economy and expand it in good paying jobs.
Thank you. Tom Wolf.
A couple things. I think, first of all, we need to look at this billion-dollar budget hole and ask ourselves whether what we've done over the last 4 years has actually worked. I mean, does the emperor have any clothes? We've hollowed out our schools. We have 100,000 plus fewer jobs, people in the civilian workforce now at the end of 2013, fewer than we did at the beginning of 2013. So what has all this austerity gotten for us? It's gotten us to the point where we're worse off than we were 4 years ago. And one of the reflections of that is that we're forced to talk about stupid things like, should we allow Keno? Should we allow online gambling? Two things on that. Keno, actually, we've got to be careful of that, because if we want the lottery to actually continue to produce billion-dollar plus net profits for seniors, Keno would probably eat into that. We've got to understand that, and I think the state has to be looking at what's the best thing for those seniors. Second, online gambling, yeah, we can talk about that if it's going to take place anyway. That's a new technology, and we really ought to be thinking about that. But basically, if we want to raise revenues, these are all sideshows. Raising revenues gets back to making this state the kind of place where good jobs are going to be created. That means education. That means a level playing field. That means infrastructure. That means the hard, heavy lifting, the blocking and tackling that states have to do to make themselves attractive to people who are going to create jobs. Plus some targeted benefits that, to prime the pump that we might do. But it's fundamental, it's hard work, and there are no easy answers. And the fact that we're talking about this 4 years into the Corbett administration, I think, is a reflection of how little progress has been made in getting Pennsylvania to the better place it wants to get.
Thank you.